Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Hassler-Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center. We are based in North Florida. Often, we think of it as the Big Bend or the Panhandle, and we're in the capital city of Tallahassee, but do work in the six-county area of our judicial circuit here. Our work is really I think of it as two main missions, if you will. We provide direct care to survivors of sex and labor trafficking, adults, minors, documented, undocumented, U.S. citizens, it doesn't matter what immigration status. We help everyone. And so we work with everyone. And the way we do it is with many partners. Like all of you know, there is no one entity or sector or person or group that can address the issues of human trafficking. It really is an all hands on deck approach to ending and preventing trafficking. Want to emphasize too, we're in a place where there are lots of rural areas, and I'm looking at the chat and I see a lot of you are from rural areas as well. And so you know that very often one of the myths out there is that human trafficking doesn't happen except for big cities or big metro areas, and we know that that's not true. Our agency does tons of community education because we find that if you don't know it, if your brain doesn't know what's going on, right, then you can't see it. So whenever that phrase "see something, say something" comes up, I always think about that adage that the eyes can't see what the brain doesn't know. So we work super hard to really dispel a lot of myths around trafficking and mostly just expose people to the truth and realities that we see from our work with survivors directly, as well as what is going on out there all over the country. We do lots of community education, agency-specific education, and I want to just put our website in the chat because it's rich with information. Could I have the next slide, please, Cassandra? So, as I said, that's our website. You can link directly in the chat to it. And what you'll see, and I'm going to do this one too, is that this webinar, which is now 407 people, by the way, we haven't ever had this many people at one of our webinars. This is groundbreaking for all of us. So thank you all for joining. But after you listen to what I know is going to be a hugely important and informing webinar, you will be able to find it on our website. Our website has all of our past Third Friday programs. And I'll tell you the other great thing about it is that a lot of folks, DCF included, I know Marina and Victoria, we saw this at the last time we made a presentation. You are sharing often what this website that I just put in the chat, this web link for all of our past programs. Know that our support, this webinar to you all, we're bringing it to you at no cost. All of our services for survivors are free. However, we are getting to a point with doing these programs that we would greatly appreciate your support. So at one point, I'm going to put the donate link up to. It would just really help us sustain this great work and keep this information coming to you in a quick and easy way. Okay, next slide, please. One of the things that I think that is really for us, one of the most interesting things that we've been doing, one of the most compelling, enlightening, is our podcast. So these are very positive, very enlightening, uplifting, informative podcasts where I interview survivors who are doing work in the field, who are knowledgeable like no one else can be, who are insightful, who are practical, who are giving and compassionate. Anyway, you get my point. The podcasts are really interesting. There's the QR code if you're a podcast person, which I totally am. I just encourage you to take advantage of this resource. You'll hear from people who are sex trafficked, labor trafficked, people who have been out and working in the field, people who we would surprise you about a lot of stuff. So please listen to our podcast. Okay, next slide, please. And subscribe, rate, and review. I think you're always supposed to say that. Okay, that was fast because everybody, I really want you to hear from our presenters today. Marina Anderson, and it's not in your official bio, Marina, but I think that you truly are the most popular webinar presenter that we have had in this series. And one of the things I know about Marina is that not only is she a great presenter, that she is also a very caring and I like the way you analyze things. I like how insightful you are. I like how you bring into practical terms what everybody can do to end and prevent human trafficking as well as support survivors. So let me just say that off the top from my heart. But start to just give you a little bit of more of who Marina is. She joined DCF, that's our in Florida, Department of Children and Families, Office of Child Welfare and the Human Trafficking Team in 2015. So you've been doing this quite some time, Marina. I know you've been really active in the field for a long time as well. You're a subject matter in domestic violence and in human trafficking, physical and sexual abuse, all kinds of victimization in terms of being able to identify. And that work you've done in the field, I think, has continued to inform you as you still work in the field. And you have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of North Florida. Okay. Victoria Maines. Victoria, welcome. Victoria, we've just had a chance to meet. I'm so glad you're part of the DCF team and that you're with us today. Victoria is a dedicated professional, excelling in investigative and supervisory roles at DCF. You've worked in the fields and in cases involving sexual abuse and human trafficking and other high risk situations. Victoria is recognized for her expertise and commitment to advocacy and contributions to promoting child safety and empowering survivors of human trafficking. So thank you, Victoria and Marina, for joining us. Now, if you want to get your slides up, Marina, I want to say a couple more things about some of the technical stuff again, because we've had several, maybe 100 more people join since we hit the button to let people in. So everybody, please remember that we are going to be taking your questions and comments in the chat. So if you have a question, I should say comments in the chat. Q&A is also one of the buttons at the bottom of your screen. So if you have a question, please put it in there. If it's foundational to what's going on in terms of the presentation, like someone's given an acronym that that nobody knows what it is or something, I'll stop the presenters and ask them please to answer the question that's been posed. If, however, it's something that we can keep to the end, we'll flag that and try to pick it up at the end. The other thing I want to, and please know that we've got 10 minutes reserved at the end for that. And if we don't get to your questions, I'll put my email in the chat shortly. You can reach out to Stack at surviveandthriveadvocacy.org, and we will be sure we'll have also the presenters' contact info at the end so your questions can get answered. One more thing I want to say in introducing this program. Marina came to Tallahassee and presented a smaller version of this to our local Rotary Club. And I will tell you that everyone in that room was riveted by it, was I want to say shocked, Marina and Victoria, but it really made an impact. And just the numbers that are on this webinar today really tell us the seriousness of this issue, the prevalence of it, the fact that this is something that is really just we've got to stay on top of, and that we have to realize that the technology is not going to go away. It's only going to get more sophisticated. So how do we do what we need to do in terms of technology and protecting youth and adults, actually? And also knowing these trends. It's so important to stay on top of these. These Third Friday programs always focus on our trends. Stack is here to be this facilitator for all of you. And I want to encourage you all, please, again, to go to our website and to sign up for our newsletter so you can attend future events and you can be and you can look at past events as well. We're here to be supportive of you, especially in these very important issues like today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marina and to Victoria. And thank you so much again for being here today and for all the great work you do. And before I
Thank
start,
you.
small technical point, we do have that black square on the right-hand side of the screen. That might be one of those things we just have to deal with, Marina.
Yeah, because I'm not seeing it on my end. I have a clear screen on mine. So,
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, we know it's there. We can't do a whole lot about it. So it'll be fine.
yep.
It'll be fine. Okay.
Don't
Thank you.
worry. If it comes back up, if I see it on another slide, I will try to take it away from you guys.
And you know what
Thank
happened the last time, really briefly though, it blocked some phone numbers sometimes. So please forgive me if I interrupt you and say, hey, I'm going to tell you the phone number that it might be blocking. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And also this is going to be also put on the Stack website. So you can go back and view it, or either if you have a colleague that you believe that this would be beneficial for, they can definitely go back and view it on the Stack website. Usually it takes about 10 days or so to put it up on the site.
Thank
But
you.
we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about trends. I think it's very important that we stay up to date on what is trending in Florida, throughout the United States, throughout the nation, on is everything that is we're seeing. So we're talking about a lot of things, maybe Florida specific, but I see there's quite a few people that are not from Florida, and that is okay because these trends we're seeing throughout the United States, regardless of where you live. So it's going to really benefit you as well. So just don't think because you might see a Florida stat, or I may reference Florida, doesn't mean that it may not also be happening in your area. I think it's very important to talk about trends, what we're seeing, staying up to date, what we're seeing in our investigations, what we're seeing when we go out in our community, what's being reported back to us. We need to understand the vulnerabilities. We need to understand what populations are at risk, but I also want to really focus, and I say this every time I do a presentation, a lot of times when people think of trafficking, they think either foreign born, people coming over from other countries, or they think of, oh, it's kids in care, or it's kids that's involved in the juvenile justice system, or it's kids that's involved in foster care. And yes, does that put them at a higher level of risk? Absolutely. But we staff cases every single day where it's very low risk children, meaning that they come from a good family, very little dysfunction within that family unit. They go to school, they may be doing well in school, they may be involved in sports or other extracurricular activities. So you don't really see the red flags, but everyone has a vulnerability. Your vulnerability today probably looks very different than your vulnerability when you were 12 or 13 or 14 years old, but we all have them. And traffickers are master manipulators that are there to prey on that vulnerability, regardless of what it is. So, again, if you need that boyfriend figure, that romantic partner, that friend, that confidant, just want someone to listen to them, that's who they're going to be. We're going to kind of talk about the stages of recruitment, and some of this for those that are on, I saw quite a few names that I'm familiar with. It may be a little bit in the beginning, a review, but as we go into this presentation, you're going to see more and more things that maybe you haven't ever heard before, or really things that maybe you're seeing as you're working these cases, either in case management or investigations. We're going to talk about substance abuse addiction and how it links to HT. And I can tell you, I've been doing this work for a long time. I've been with the department for 22 years, and the substance addiction, both in children and adults, is just mind blowing. They are becoming addicted to very harsh, harmful substances at such young ages. That's such a vulnerability to link them into human trafficking, which we're really going to talk about today. And we're going to focus on that for a good portion of this presentation. How to protect the vulnerable populations, understanding the dangers of social media and the recruitment strategies that's used in social media and gaming systems, how apps and online gaming is used to manipulate victims, and how to put in safeguards to prevent human trafficking. So, Department of Children and Families in Florida investigates all areas of trafficking. So, a lot of times when people think of Department of Children and Families or child welfare, they think of a family unit. They think of investigating a parent or a caregiver or someone that's in some form of a caregiver role. But however, in Florida, we investigate all areas of trafficking. So it could be a trafficker led. And during this presentation, as I'm saying trafficker, I'm referring to a pimp, but pimp is not in our legal language. It's a glorified word, but that's what I'm referring to. So as you hear me say trafficker, that's what I'm referring to. So that's a third party that's brokering that exchange for that sexual act. And it could be for a tangible item. It could be for money. It could be for Amazon gift cards or Amazon carts. It could be for cyber currency. It could be for gaming bucks. These are all things that we kind of see. It could be for a ride out of town. It could be for a couch to sleep on. Anything that you can put value to it is what that intangible item, in the benefit of that sexual act to that tangible item. So gang trafficking. Gangs are getting heavily involved in trafficking. We're going to do a gang series. We've done it before. We're about to do it again in Northwest Florida. So those, I saw quite a few of you guys on Northwest. Please participate in that training next month, because we are seeing that link between gang trafficking and sex trafficking. If you sell a drug, you sell a gun, which obviously if you're part of a gang, you're some form of criminality, and they're selling these items, they have to go back for more items to sell, but they can sell that person over and over and over again. So it's a way to generate money for that gang members is involved in the trafficking of the victim. Oftentimes that victim that's involved in gang trafficking, they're terrified. They're viable threats that says that if you roll on our family, if you roll on our gang, then something bad's going to happen to you. Something bad's going to happen to their family. And they know this. They see this every single day. So they know that violence is most likely going to occur. So it's very difficult to work these cases. Familial controlled trafficking, sex trafficking occurs within a family member or guardian. Now, again, with that familial, we're seeing a huge link between familial and the substances, because parents are addicted, maybe kids and parents are addicted. They have no means to support their drug habit. And that's a huge issue when I talk to many people in this profession, whether it's child welfare, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's healthcare, with teachers. When you are working with whether it's a young person or whether it's an adult, and they have a significant substance abuse addiction, and they have no means to support that habit, that is one of the biggest red flags I could give you today. If you don't take anything away from this presentation, that is a big one for you. Because think about it. How are they getting the substances? Now, could they be stealing, robbing, burglarizing? Absolutely. But if they're not doing those things, drug dealers don't give away free drugs, right? So how are they getting those drugs? How are they being able to maintain that substance addiction? Because you have to look at that sex trafficking piece. Now, sometimes it is selling their bodies or exchange that transactional sex for the substances. Sometimes it's selling pornography. Maybe it's selling child pornography. And we'll get into that a little bit as we go. And then survival sex, any type of sex trafficking that does not involve a third party. So it's more like transactional sex. It doesn't necessarily have to be for a survival need, food, shelter, clothing, although it could be. It could be also to support a drug habit. It could be just to go on a shopping spree. It could be to purchase those substances. So a ride out of town is very common, especially kids or young people that run and they don't have a means to get out of town or go wherever they want to go. So they may exchange a sexual act for that ride. So vulnerable populations, refugees, homeless, adult youth, youth in care, substance addictions, persons with disabilities, including mental health disabilities, that all are vulnerable populations. History of physical or sexual abuse, dysfunctional home life, self-esteem issues, or seeking a romantic relationship, that's a huge one as well. So when I talk in these trainings, yes, sometimes I do focus a little bit on young people because that has been my career. However, it also is interchangeable with, young adults, older adults, people that are seeking those romantic relationships. It may even be your grandparents. You have to have these conversations, especially if they're on social media. They're maybe on dating apps, and yes, some grannies are on it, right? So we have to be really careful about how they can be exploited online. And again, I'm going to talk more about that, but I want to plant that seed to start thinking kind of outside the box here, that it's not always kids. It could be yourself. It could be your friends. You need to have these conversations because people get exploited all the time off of social media and dating apps.
Lena, can I let you know that that block is still there? So the very last on the far right of your PowerPoint screen.
Okay.
We can't read the words under that
Okay.
image.
Okay. I'll let you know when I get there. Runaway and homeless youth. prior trauma, drug and alcohol abuse, and this is the one that Robin was talking about. So it's unsupervised access to social media and online gaming. And again, yes, unsupervised, meaning most likely if it's a minor or someone with vulnerability. However, it could also be adults as well. Not necessarily being unsupervised, but maybe being a little bit not aware of the dangers of social media and online gaming and how you can be manipulated and exploited. So what does trafficking look like? We're going to look at this video. Some of you may have seen it in some of our previous presentations, but how easy is it to become a victim of trafficking? Again, preying on that vulnerability. On this video, you can see the vulnerability would be there's some dysfunction going on in the family, some arguing, possibly domestic violence that's happening. This young person runs. Again, they run without a plan, which is very, very common. Oftentimes, the youth that we work with, when they run, they don't have money. They usually don't have many items they take with them. They might pack a backpack. They might just have the clothes on their back. They don't have a means to support themselves on the run. So therefore, they're out there with that vulnerability of, I don't know what I'm going to do. And maybe someone says, hey, I can help you. Let me do this for you. But it's not for free. What are you going to do for me in return? And that's what you're going to see. But I also want you to focus on all the different places somebody might pick up on an indicator that something isn't quite right. So you're going to see several different places that these young people are at that maybe a person would say, I should call that in, or maybe I should put in a tip because something doesn't seem right. This person could be vulnerable, and this person could be involved in trafficking or being exploited.
Hey, where you headed? You ladies from around here?
Actually, I'm from Florida.
Florida?
Are we paying you to talk or to drive?
My bad.
Go get her.
Not her.
She's gonna make us some money.
Are you hungry? My man takes great care of us.
I said, where you been, not what do I think? Answer the question.
So making sure you're always paying attention to your environment. It's one thing in this field that we always say is once you know the signs, you kind of can't unsee it. So you may be at a restaurant with your family, at a sporting event. You may be checking into your hotel or in the elevator of your hotel or while you're traveling in all different places and you see signs. I know it seems like everywhere I go, I'm like, I need to look into that, or I need to really pay attention to that, or I might need to call that in, or I may need to notify a colleague that this might be happening. And again, you do see more once you realize what you should be looking for. There's 3 common stages of recruitment. Again, it does not matter whether it's in person or whether it's online. It's the same 3 stages. People always talk to me about like the movie Taken or Sound of Freedom, where people are being kidnapped and sold in the sex trade. And I'm not saying that doesn't ever happen, but it's a very, very small percentage. Less than 1% of cases that we see has any form of a kidnapping element. It's usually going to come on three stages of recruitment, which is lure, trust, and payback. They meet them. They develop a relationship with them, whether it's online or in person, whether it's a friendship or whether it turns into a romantic relationship. So in that very first stage, they're paying special attention. They may be telling them how gorgeous they are, how handsome they are. They give lots of compliments, lots of affection, maybe a lot of gifting. They offer romance, support. They might be taking them to parties. They offer them drugs, getting their hair done, their nails done, taking them to the barber shop, or giving them money to do that. Because again, maybe it's not in person. Maybe they're, sending them through PayPal or Venmo or Cash App to pay for these things. But I also warn people. So getting hair done, nails done, change of appearance is another red flag for you. And I always tell people, think about, if you're going to sell your car and you are going to go and probably wash your car, you're going to put Armor All on it, you're going to get in the best lighting, you're going to take that picture, and you are going to try to get the best deal out of your car, right? You're going to sell it for the most money you possibly can. Well, with trafficking, when they're getting their hair done, they're getting their nails done, they are giving them makeup or providing them makeup or giving them money to purchase makeup, cologne, taking them to the barbershop, buying them new clothes. Again, it's not because they're nice. It's not because they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing that as a way of grooming. They're doing that as a way for them to make more money. Because if a person shows up to a buyer of the sexual act, and maybe they haven't washed their hair in a few weeks, maybe they haven't bathed in a couple of days, maybe they don't have the best clothes, maybe they don't look the best, are they going to get top dollar? No. Unfortunately, they'll probably get something, but not top dollar. But if they show up and they smell nice, they look nice, they're wearing, maybe a particular color that they requested or what have you, they have their hair done, their nails done, they're probably going to get more money. And so that's what it all boils down to. But again, huge red flag. If they have their hair done, nails done, barbershop, new items that they cannot afford, jewelry and things like that they cannot afford, other electronics that they're showing up with, multiple cell phones, tablets, computers, again, no means to support it, big red flag. They promise an increase in popularity, and that's also a way to recruit. So if they're coming to school and they didn't have the best of things, and now they're coming to school or the community centers or hanging out with their friends and they have nicer things, they're going to say, hey, how are you getting that? I want those things too. And they're like, oh, come to the party Saturday night. My boy Jimmy will hook you up. Or come over to my house and we're going to get on live webcam with Tracy, and she's going to send us she'll cash app us some money to go purchase these things. So it's a way to increase and recruit others as well. Then it moves to the trust. They're selling them the glamour of the street life. They're probably introducing them pornography. They're watching pornography together. They may tell them, hey, it really turns me on if I see you having sex with my friends or you making out with my friends, getting them used to group sexual activities, getting them used to pornography, the way to sexually entice others, what to say, what to do, creating that form of normalcy. Everybody does this. We're going to make some money. We're going to be partners. They start saying, I love you. They may start having sex with a child, and that could be in person or that could be virtually. It may be, because there's a lot of cases, and I say this a lot when I go back to that virtual component, because there's many, many cases that we're working right now. The perpetrators, these traffickers, are not in the same city. Some are not in the same state. Some are not in the same country. We worked just this year alone, many cases where the traffickers met them and they live in another country, has never set foot in U.S. soil, but have been manipulating and exploiting victims online. They challenge boundaries set by the parents. So that parent may say, this isn't a good person. I don't want you dating this person. I don't want you talking to this person. And that trafficker is going to be there to say, don't listen to them. They're trying to keep you away from me. They're trying to, keep our love separated. I love you. I care for you. I want to be with you. I want to marry you. I want to give you that family you've always wanted. They're treating you like a little boy or a little girl. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. Listen to me. We're partners. And then the payback. I've done all these things for you. What are you going to do for me? I put in my 50%. You need to put in your 50%. I'm not a trafficker. I'm not a pimp. I'm a business partner. I'm your business manager. I'm your marketer. And this is how they are manipulating them to continue to do what they're doing. And unfortunately, social media and influencers promote the same tactics. It may not be for necessarily sexually exploitation, but they talk about the importance of marketing. Little 10-year-olds know what marketing is now. And, I'm much older than probably many of you that's on here today, but I had no clue what a marketing plan was when I was 10 years old. But due to social media, due to TikTok, they know these things. Understanding indicators. So physical indicators, maybe untreated injuries, bruising, burns, frequent STDs, STIs, physical and sexual abuse, substance use, dental issues, memory loss, exposure to toxins and chemicals. Some behavioral red flags, confusing the story, which could also be a result of trauma as well. Inability to concentrate, unaware of location, guilt and shame about their experiences, depression and anxiety, protects the person that hurts them and minimizes the abuse. Again, you see that in the correlation with domestic violence as well. Accompanied by someone, environmental, accompanied by someone that will answer for them. So they can't answer the questions. They're looking for someone else to answer it for them. In school settings, they have changes in behavior. Maybe they're wearing different clothing or not coming in on time, leaving in overcrowded areas, living in overcrowded areas, sorry. Potential warning signs, they're not free to leave. Maybe they're involved in commercial sex industry. They're unpaid or paid very little. They're working excessively long hours. They're not allowed to take breaks. Maybe they owe a large debt and just can't see their way out. Some other mental health or behavioral, they're fearful, anxious, depressed, fearful of law enforcement, and avoid eye contact. Now, these are just some of the signs. There's many, many more. We're going to talk about substances here, and I want to stress the correlation that we see. The cases that we are currently working, and again, it doesn't matter whether it's in Florida or anywhere in the United States. I traveled, I do many national level conferences. I'm on several committees on the national level, and we are all talking about the same thing. And the substance abuse addiction is a huge, huge problem in our country right now. It's very cheap to get a hold of substances. It's very easy to get on substances. Traffickers introduce them to more harsher substances to keep them coming back, keeping them addicted. So they may recruit through the substances. So maybe that person's already experimenting with substances, or maybe they already have a substance addiction, and that's how they met that trafficker. And maybe that trafficker said, hey, you don't have the money, or you're short this week, or you're short today. So what are you going to do for me? Or if you do the sexual act on me, then I'll give you the drugs. Or you do the sexual act to someone else and I'll give you the drugs. So it may be a recruitment for someone that's already experimenting with substances. They may control them to the substance addiction. So they're getting them addicted. Maybe they were just experimenting with marijuana or some other type of drugs, and now they're giving them more harsher drugs. And we see this very commonly. When I began doing this work, if I had a 12-year-old that tested positive for marijuana, it was a really big deal. And not to say that it's still not a big deal, but when I see kids every single day that are 12 years old or younger, these 10, 11-year-olds that are addicted to heroin, that are addicted to fentanyl, that are experimenting with mollies, that just significant drug addiction. And many times they would tell me, oh, I only smoke marijuana. Well, back in the day, if you told me you only smoke marijuana and you're popping like a Christmas tree on your UA, I would say you're not being truthful. You need to tell me exactly what's going on. Now, that could be the true statement. They have absolutely no idea what they're using. They think they're smoking marijuana, and they gave them a higher high or a different high than normal. They liked it better. Maybe they stayed higher longer. So, if Jimmy over here is selling marijuana, they've been buying their drugs with Jimmy forever, and, everything's all good. Jimmy goes out of town, so they start buying their marijuana through Tammy, and Tammy, man, that high was so much stronger. I stayed high longer. Who do you think they're going to go back to? They're going to go back to Jimmy, or are they going to go to Tammy? Most likely they're going to stay with Tammy, right? Well, Tammy's had meth in it. And that's what we're seeing every single day. They have absolutely no idea. They're marketing as one thing, and it's laced completely with something else to get them more addicted to keep going back for more. The mollies, the ecstasy, very, very common in trafficking. It's known as a love drug because they want that affection. They want that touch. It's very craved with those substances, which obviously it can be used in trafficking occurrences. So we see that all the time where young kids are using Molly or ecstasy. They use substance as coping. So maybe if they dealt with prior traumatic experiences, or their current trafficking experience, and they just they need some way to be able to just kind of to check out for a little bit, to cope. Signs: drug use and alcohol addiction. So it could be in a young person. It could also, some of these may also be a young adult as well. But receiving lower grades in school, missing school, skipping class, no longer involved in extracurricular activities, no longer engaging in activities or hobbies, getting in trouble at school or at work, getting in trouble with authorities or the law, spending time with different friends, spending more time alone, spending more time out and away from the home, having different eating habits, sleeping habits, weight loss, loss of interest of their pets is another common one. Bloodshot eyes, uncontrollable movements, fidget tremors. And again, it doesn't matter here if you are a young person, an older person, it doesn't matter. You're going to have these same type of indicators. Skin picking, very, very common in multiple drugs. Missing curfew, mood swings, loss of impulse control, nosebleeds, poor hygiene, prescription drugs or alcohol is going missing, experiencing problems with family members or other loved ones, experience problems with friends, taking less time with their appearance. So what are some of the common substances? Marijuana is still probably the number one, but again, a lot of times marijuana is not pure, especially, most likely they're not getting it from a dispensary, they're getting it from the street, and it's not pure. It has all kinds of different things in it. It could have Adderall in it. It could have meth in it. It could have heroin. Who knows? Stimulants are also very common. Adderall, MDMA, ecstasy or Molly, painkillers, prescription drugs, spice or K2, which is synthetic marijuana. You can pretty much go almost anywhere in the state of Florida, especially, and you'll see the Delta strands that can be even sold in convenience stores, which we've been told many, many times that the Delta strand is even stronger than regular marijuana. Is what we're being told by the kiddos that we're working with, that they get a higher high from the Delta than they are from marijuana, which is pretty scary because Delta is sold legally. Heroin, cocaine, crystal meth, any type of hallucinogen, an LSD, acid mushrooms. Mushrooms is making a huge comeback. They're making it into candies or making not so much into teas as they used to, even though some people probably still do that, but very commonly put in cookies or candies. Cough syrup. I mean, if you've gotten sick lately and you try to go to CVS or Walgreens without your ID to buy cough syrup, usually you probably wasn't very successful. You have to have not a prescription, but an ID to prove that you're over the age of 18 to purchase cough syrup. Inhalants, glue, nail polish, gas, nicotine vaping, huge issue. Now, I will say this also with the nicotine vaping. I was working in an area in Florida. I was actually doing training for a law enforcement agency, and I'm in my training, and all of a sudden these officers get up and walk out, and I'm thinking, did Marina's mouth get her in trouble again? What did I say? Well, afterwards, the sheriff came up to me and said, I'm so sorry. We had an issue at one of our local schools. I had to send my deputies over to the school, and they had 3 kids that went down with fentanyl. They thought they were vaping nicotine. They had bought a nicotine vaping pen from a friend at school, and that person had refilled that vaping pen, because many of them are refillable, and what the substance that they refilled it with had fentanyl in it. So again, it can happen whether it's nicotine, it could have vaping nicotine, or whether they're vaping marijuana or vaping any other substance. Alcohol, ketamine is another one that we're commonly seeing. Understanding and decoding through emojis with drugs, understanding when you see these pills, when you see the blue, the P, the buses, the trains, leaves of any trees of any time, mushroom, of course, that's pretty clear what they're talking about there. Candy, 8 balls, snow, keys. These are all very, very common. Anything to do with chemistry. Really look at that. The cookies, the batches, money signs of any sort are all very common in drug emojis. Now, we've worked several cases, both sex trafficking and involved in drugs, We're involved with drug task forces as well and understanding that link between the two. And we've worked several cases this year where it is becoming an issue where people are using emojis opposed to language. So obviously an emoji could have multiple purposes, right? You may be going on vacation and you put a palm tree, right? Or you may put a palm tree because you're seeking marijuana or what have you. So these emojis is becoming an issue because you're trying to try to make an arrest, you're trying to take a case to trial. And of course, a defense attorney is going to say, well, I can't prosecute, even though you've decoded it, you know what the meanings were behind the emojis, but the emojis have other meanings as well. So it becomes very, very problematic. You've got to be very proactive. If you are working with a youth or an adult that you feel is having a substance, an addiction to substances, you need to notify your supervisor, your staff, come up with a game plan, be very proactive, have a plan of action. You need to clearly document your concerns. You need to request for substance abuse evaluations and referrals. If that youth or adult is involved in the judicial system, whether it's through DJJ or through juvenile probation officer, probation, parole, or what have you, you need to make those notifications because sometimes they can get court orders on things that maybe we couldn't working with that person. But the bottom line is if you wait, it could be too late to take action. We have unfortunately had many kids and young people that were exposed to fentanyl, were exposed to ISOs and different things that took their life. You know, there's Narcan in a lot of places, but it's not everywhere. And sometimes, unfortunately, we've had some young people that Narcan has been used so many times, they've developed somewhat of a tolerance to it. So it's not working as effectively as it should. So understanding social media, and we're going to kind of move into this section now on the trendings. We have a huge, huge problem with social media. Can social media be used for good things? 100%. Can social media be used for a malicious intent? 100%. You have to understand and know what your kids are on, whether it's a kid that maybe is on your caseload, maybe it's your own children within your home, maybe it's your nieces, nephews, or godchildren, or what grandchildren, whoever it may be. You need to understand and share knowledge that not everyone that you meet on these apps or gaming friends are who they say they are, that they may be trying to manipulate you. And it could be on any of these apps that we see here, but there's so many more out there. Every single day we hear of another app that's being created to that could result in trafficking. So the bottom line is you have to educate yourself. You need to stay up to date with new apps. And that could be just a simple Google search every week, every few weeks, every month. What's the trending apps that's out there? What's the danger in those apps? How can you keep your kids safe, or how can they keep them their own self safe? And that's important because as many of us, I know my kids probably would say I was a helicopter parent. I was probably pretty jaded because of my career path. However, you know, I can't be there all the time. Neither can you. They have to know how to keep themselves safe and what to do if something happens. What would they do if somebody tries to manipulate them? So you're going to check the kids' devices frequently and thoroughly. You're going to set appropriate parental controls, age restrictions, downloading apps, time restrictions. Discuss the apps and sites you find. Keep an open line of communication. Talk to them about oversharing or not oversharing information. It's not a journal. It's not a diary. They shouldn't be doing check-ins everywhere they go because that's a danger in itself. And most importantly, maintain a connected relationship. Again, you're not being nosy. Their privacy is not as important as their safety, right? You're a parent, you're there to protect them. So I hear that a lot of times, oh, well, it's an invasion of their privacy. No, it's not. You need to know what your kids are doing. You wouldn't let a stranger come through their front door and come in and play with your kids. You shouldn't be allowing them to be communicating with people on social media, on gaming sites, and not know who they are, because you're letting that person through your door every single day if you allow that. Now you can have the best of the software, the detection software like Bark is just one example, and they're great and they're expensive. But however, you know, it's one hacker away. It's one, YouTube video away to figure out how to bypass that control. So I hear parents all the time, oh, I have parental controls. That's great. That's one step. I'm glad you do that. You have age restrictions. You have restrictions on downloading apps. Those are all great things. But unfortunately, kids are, I guess, fortunately and unfortunately, kids are smart, right? Kids can know that they can get on YouTube. They can get on and Google how to bypass things. And if they can't figure it out, guess what? I promise you, they probably know a hacker within their school system that can be able to do this for a very small fee. So we see that all the time. And not only that, but if they're not, maybe you have all this on your device. That's wonderful. However, a lot of times they just borrow their friend's device, or they go to the library, or they go to their friend's house and get on their tablet or their computer. And you have no idea that's what they're actually doing, because they're not doing it on your device or your Wi-Fi. So establish open communication, supervise use of all internet enabled devices. I can't stress that enough. It's not just the phone. It's not just the computer. Anything that has Wi-Fi capability, you need to be monitoring. It's most likely if it has Wi-Fi capability, then they can get on other sites. You need to think about sites that maybe are apps that maybe you would look at as not as something that would be as concerning, maybe like Pinterest. We've had a lot of victimization that occurred during Pinterest. People don't know that that's what's actually happening. They think that they're just on there pinning their, dream boards, and they come to find out there's a chat feature on Pinterest, and they're communicating with a trafficker or a sex extorter. Regularly check their online communities. Supervise the photos and videos your kids are posting and sending online. Teach your children how to protect personal information. Be sure your children use privacy settings on their social media and gaming platforms. Disallowing access to chat rooms or live audio chat. You have to use extreme caution if you're going to let your kids in chat rooms. Now, sometimes, maybe it's Zoom or some other type of platform that they're using for school, but you need to be very, very careful with that, because again, a lot of victimization is occurring when they can go in these private chat rooms. And I can't tell you how many cases this year alone, not to mention over the past probably 5 to 7 years, how many cases we worked where that's where it began, in these chat rooms, the gaming chat rooms or social media chat rooms. Limit your child's instant messaging contacts to parent-approved buddy lists. Use safeguards and safe engines, search engines. Set up the family's cybersecurity protections, and utilize parental controls on the child's phone and mobile devices. You need to avoid meeting people face-to-face if they don't know them, in person already. If they didn't meet them from school or from their extracurricular activities, if they only know them online and now they're wanting to meet in person, you need to be very, very careful with that. Teach your children how to respond to cyberbullying. And when I say that on the first one, that doesn't mean whether it's just your kid, maybe it's yourself, maybe you're single and you're on Bumble or Tinder or what have you. You got to be very, very careful on meeting people that you don't know and you only know through that app, because there's been some really squirrely things that's happened, and really concerning things that's happened in those type of situations on those dating apps. Establish agreement with your children on internet policy and home and outside the home. Parental control should be utilized on all internet enabled devices. Again, I say that again because it's so important. It could be their mobile devices, gaming, music streaming, it does not matter, what it is. If it has a internet Wi-Fi capability, you need to be limiting those controls as well. Again, disallowing those chat rooms, very, very important. There's that connectivity between recruitment and sales. So they meet them, they're communicating with them, again, whether it's in person, whether that is online, whether it's through social media, through a gaming app or a chat app. They start chatting with that person, they're gathering information, they're asking them questions, they're commenting when they post things on their social media. They're there to feel that vulnerability, build that trust. They start having them share more pictures. So I like you, I care for you, I love you. Send me pictures you wouldn't normally send anyone. And at first it will be kind of more innocent pictures. And as it progresses, it might get more scandalous type pictures, nude pictures, and they move them from sharing those pictures with them to sharing maybe online, or maybe that person is using those pictures, so they're sending them to post them and make money online without them knowing. Or maybe they say, we're going to be a team. We're going to do this together. I'll be your business partner. I'll be your manager. You send me the pictures. I'm going to post them and I'm going to give you that money, or we're going to make lots and lots of money. And they see this
Marina?
every day.
Yeah,
Yes.
can I jump in for a sec? Because the chat is really going crazy on some great things, what you're saying. I just want to give you some information here that the spice description and talking about synthetic weed is really, really impacting. People didn't know about it. So we're posting stuff on that. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody to talk about it. People are also talking about how their own children had been lured in using these drugs. So this is very real. And in case you're not in the chat, just know that we're talking about, people are validating exactly what you're saying, Marina. So, and then someone just said that they were chatting with a trafficker on a game site, and the trafficker had them download a calculator app on their phone where they could chat more freely and send pictures. And of course, the parents thought it was a calculator. So just wanted to share that.
Calculator's right here. It was on that next slide. So yes, that's very, very common. Calculator. If they have more than one calculator on their phone, that's a red flag for you. They're not probably, math geniuses. They're, it's a hidden app that you can use to hide pictures and video files and things of that nature. These are just some of the apps that are very common, but there's so many more. There's apps are very easy to create. I'm not that tech savvy and I can create an app, and that says a lot. So sometimes they're creating their own apps, and sometimes they're using more, notable apps that's out like Snapchat. Snapchat's probably one of the number one that we see when people are asked, well, what app are they using to sell pictures of themselves? Snapchat. Probably across the board. Now, again, are there many others? Absolutely, but that's probably one of your number ones. Meet Me, WhatsApp with the messaging. Kick is another. Telegram, which is not on here, is another really common one that we see on the text messaging that's not using your data plan. All they have to have is a Wi-Fi connection. Again, that calculator that we're talking about, Periscope, Omegle, another one that's really common, and we see a lot of victimization. Hot or Not is one that we see a lot with a lot of cyberbullying, where people are posting pictures of people within their school system and they have to rate them whether they're hot or not. So, and they can get pretty graphic in the images that's being shared on there as well. Tinder, Grindr is one of the number ones for victimization, with male victimization, within our LGBTQ plus community as well, that we see. TikTok, advertisements on TikTok constantly on how they can make a lot of money selling pictures of themselves, dancing in clubs. Again, in most areas, you either have to be 18 to 21 to dance in a club, but you can get a fake ID very easily online, and that's one way that traffickers will get them in the clubs dancing, getting them used to taking their clothes off and putting their clothes back on. Twitter being another one is very common. Some of the gaming apps, House Party. I would say that Twitch and Discord and Roblox is probably the three that we see the most of an issue with victimization through the gaming chat apps. And they could be asking for images or sexual content for gaming codes, for gaming bucks. A lot of victimization is occurring, and we're seeing this more and more, and especially with younger kids. Again, I already talked about emojis a little bit when I was talking about decoding the drug emojis, but also the X-rated emojis. Pretty much any smartphone is going to come with some type of standard emojis that's already built into those phones, but there's apps out there for everything, right? So there's an app out there for X-rated emojis. So even beyond what I'm showing you here today can be very more graphic of the emojis that can be downloaded on these apps. But when you're looking through your kids' phones or whoever's phones that you might be looking through, if you're seeing these, a lot of fruit, eggplant, it's not, they're probably not saying they're being a vegetarian. It's known for male genitalia, female genitalia. A lot of the fruits, it doesn't matter whether it's cherries, peaches, strawberries, whatever, usually it's associated with some form of female genitalia. Grapes is very common with male genitalia. The finger symbols, you can see that it's a lot of sexual innuendos there. The circus tent is common for male erection. The train, rocket, volcano are all very common for orgasms. Oral sex, the utensils, tacos, very common. Water symbol for orgasm or ejaculation is also very common. We see the horse or either the camel. It could be the active sex. It could also be saying that they want to go bareback or they want to have sex with them without using protection. Is also very common. So what can I recommend for parents? We recommend that you go through the phones and the apps. After doing so, enable restrictions installing those apps. Have that positive conversation with that child. Why do they want that out? Want the app? How are they going to keep themselves safe while using the app? And what will happen if you find out they're being inappropriate while using the app? Now, you also have to have really good conversations with your kids about what happens, maybe if they've already sent something that maybe they shouldn't have. I would say working with this population so much, one of the common things that they will tell me on the reasons why they did not disclose is because they were fearful to either get in trouble by their parents, get their phones taken away by their parents, or disappointing their parents. So I think that's very important that you have these conversations, because sometimes things have happened and maybe they did share a photo that maybe they shouldn't have, and now they're asking for more photos and they don't know what to do. So making sure that you keep that open-ended conversation with them on what to do and how you can keep themselves safe. We know sextortion is becoming a huge problem. Now, sextortion may be developing that relationship, like I talked about, on social media or gaming over a period of time. Or we also have hackers that hack right into your camera rolls, find a picture that they know you don't want out there, and they will tell you, if you don't send me more graphic pictures, I'm going to post this picture. I'm going to send this to your HR department. I'm going to send it to your mom and dad. I'm going to send it to your faith-based leaders. I'm going to post it to your stories. And they will keep sending pictures and it just never ends. And this happens, and I'm sure I can't see chat right now, but I can tell you pretty much every time I say this, people say, yes, this has happened to me, or yes, this has happened to my child, or this has happened to someone I know. I was just doing a training with a colleague, about 9 months ago. And while we're doing this presentation, she gets a call from her niece saying this has happened to her daughter, and what do they need to do? They couldn't believe that this has happened. And that's how easily it can hit home. So the sextorters could be both strangers they meet online. They could be already intimate romantic partners. Maybe their boyfriends, their girlfriends. They're attempting to harass, embarrass, or control them. They can be any race, gender, or socioeconomic class. They may not live in the same state or city or even country. They're being targeted on online websites, social media platforms, gaming systems. Oftentimes, they're just asking for a friend or follow requests, or they're playing games. So they're online gaming friends. They could approach children or adults on social media with the same interests, friends, school, employer, a lot of different type of groups that you may be following on your social media. And, some negative things that's happening. I know I'm friends on some groups on Facebook, and I've definitely seen it within that group. People post and somebody will say something or ask for something or try to link them to another site to get them off that particular site into another. So again, it doesn't have to be just children. That's why I say you need to talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents about this stuff. Sometimes they aren't as tech savvy on things, and they don't know that if they share a link or they open that link that they could be scammed. A lot of time, some tactics, they'll send a picture of themselves. I've sent you a picture of me, I want you to send me a picture of yourself. A lot of times those pictures that they are sending are very filtered, or they are stock photos they just got right off of Google. So there's usually they may say they're talking to a 14-year-old boy or girl, and it's really a 42-year-old man or woman. They seek victims by offering something of value, so they could exchange, whether it's money, drugs, or other tangible items, gift cards, cash apps, things of that nature. They may recruit from fictitious modeling talent scouts or sexual images. So they may say they're a talent scout, or you know, a modeling scout and try to get them to send more graphic pictures of themselves. They develop that relationship. Maybe they're secretly recording them. So maybe there's some sexting occurring. Maybe there's some live webcamming occurring and they're videoing it, not knowing it. There's ghost apps out there for everything. So a lot of people say, oh, I use Snapchat because if I send a picture and they screenshot it and it send me a notification back that they screenshotted that picture. But if they have ghost apps on there, it will not capture it. And the same thing with video recording. There could be a ghost app on there that's videoing you without your knowledge that it's actually happening. Physical threatening to harm, kill, or sexually assault that child or adult, or threatening to do the same thing to their family members and using multiple online identities to contact the child. So they might have met on Instagram and now they're hitting them up on Snapchat. That's another huge red flag. If you meet on one platform and you did not provide them your other platform information and now they're contacting you on another platform, that's concerning that they're seeking you out. Often they pretend to be someone younger or older. A lot of catfishing behaviors, assessing the victim's online social media and web-based accounts without authorization, so hacking into those accounts. Threatening to create or creating sexual images of the videos through digital editing. So unfortunately, there's again an app out there for everything. There's an app out there that can remove your clothing. So maybe they send them just a normal picture and they use an app to remove their clothing, sent back that image and say if they don't send them actual sexual images that they're going to post that picture. We've even had them, after they develop some form of an online relationship, tell them if they don't do the things that they ask, that they're going to kill themselves, that they're going to commit suicide. So that child or adult believes they are in a relationship with this person and they're responsible for their safety. And then saving those sexual explicit texts or video chats and conversations and threatening them to post it on their social media accounts. So how easy is it to become a victim? Very. You know, you meet this person, you develop this relationship, as you can see in this video, and how easily and how quickly it can turn to being very manipulative and preying on vulnerability and keeping them to do what they tell them to do. On this video, I want you to pay attention to not only what's being said, but look at the emotional state of this young person, how it changes from that bubbly young girl to just complete lack of hope.
Hi, Zach. Here's another video from my special guy. I can't believe we haven't talked all day. I wish you went to my school or a little closer so we could finally meet.
Hey, kiddo. Dinner in an hour. Don't spend too long on the phone.
Okay, I know you've been waiting for this for a while, so I wanted to give you something special. Is this okay?
Who are you? Why are you doing this?
She thinks she's talking to a 14 or 15-year-old peer. She's talking to obviously someone much older. There's filtering software out there. There's filtering software even on the Zoom that we're on today to make your appearance appear softer or what have you. There's filtering apps that they can use to make themselves look younger or older. As you can see in the manipulation piece on this young person, it wasn't just her. If you saw the files at the end of that clip, you would see that he's manipulating many people all at the same time. They could maybe not in the same city, not in the same state, maybe not in the same country. You have to be very, very careful on how sextortion intersects with gaming apps, through social media, again, through Xbox, PlayStations, online streaming. Harmless gaming friends could be someone that could actually harm them, whether it's physically or through sextortion. They can become very abusive, a lot of bullying that's occurring. We've had cases where unfortunately kids have committed suicide or attempted suicide because of the bullying based on gaming devices and apps. They develop that gaming relationship. They may be sending gifts or gaming currencies such as V-Bucks or Fortnite. And finally, they desensitize that use in those sexual terms, sexual conversations, and pornography images, and luring them to send nude pictures, videos of themselves, or live webcamming to produce pornography content. They could be absolutely anyone. They could be any age. They could be any socioeconomic, any gender. They're criminals that can become very vicious. They're not going to stop. And that's so important to have that conversation with your kids, that it's not going to go away. They're going to keep doing it. You have to tell somebody. If you can't tell a parent because you're scared or fearful, they have to have some type of safe person that they can go to, that they can share this information, that can help them through this process. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you some other resources to help, because there's legislation that has been put in place to help take some of these images down. They may feel like there's no way out. They may even contemplate suicide. And it's very important to report sextortion to a safe person and don't suffer in silence. Oftentimes, the sex orders may approach the young persons on multiple online sites. They may offer something of value, again, for those images, whether it's game credits, codes, or money. Or they could skip the lure altogether and go straight into hacking into their account and getting those pictures. So making their social media accounts private, do not follow or friend people they do not know, be selective, understand that people are not always who they say they are, understand that any content created, text, social media posts, or videos can be made public, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help. Cryptocurrency is another issue that we're having with the sextortion, or paying for transactional sex, paying for pornography online. And they can be used, social media can be used to advertise sexual content or transactional sex, and can also be used to recruit individuals as well. And that cyber currency enables individuals to engage in the illegal sexual activity while evading law enforcement. They're putting that blockchain crypto technology, and it's very rapidly becoming a popular payment method for online sexual exploitation and sexual abuse material. Oops. So due to time, I'm going to skip this video, but I'm going to want to talk about some of the other issues that we're having with individuals. People, again, traffickers are master manipulators. They target the vulnerabilities, and sometimes that could be a disability that they're targeting as that vulnerability. They may have, they're relying on others for care. They lack awareness of exploitation, inability to self-identify. They may be easily manipulated. They lead isolated lives. They crave the friendship and human connection, unable to report unwanted touch, and maybe receiving monetary support for state or federal sources. So some other risk factors to look for: maybe there was child abuse and neglect. Children with disabilities are more likely to experience child abuse and neglect, and the risk of CSEC is heightened for children with disabilities. Some other endangering activities: running away, unsupervised use of the internet, cell phones, poor comprehension in dangerous situations, inability to recognize motive of others, inability to distinguish traffickers from boyfriends or girlfriends, high-risk behaviors due to previous sexual abuse and exploitation tended to be prolonged. Some other risk factors, actually the same one. Investigative tips. So use forensic interviewing. If you're working with a person with disabilities, remember that's a vulnerable person. Maybe even if they are whether it's a young adult or maybe they are an older teen. Maybe you wouldn't normally use a child protection team or forensic interviewing, but that's something that you really need to take in consideration, that where is their developmental level, not what is their actual age. So you may be talking to someone that's 16 years old, but they're presenting more on the age of 7 or 8 years old. I would strongly encourage you use forensic interviewers or subject matter experts that specialize in that work of interviewing, opposed to interviewing them as you would a 16-year-old. Accommodate for unique needs. So maybe they're hearing impaired or have a disability that rises to needing specialized needs. And you want to make sure that you're accommodating for that. Ensure the presence of a translator when needed, and don't rely on a family member or someone within the community. You need to use someone that's certified interpretation services. And just as another little key thing, because I was an investigator for years myself, making sure that you are having a conversation with that translator before you start the conversation, making sure that they are going to be okay communicating with sexual terms, because depending on what you're talking about, whether it's talking about commercial sexual activity or sexual exploitation or sexual abuse, sometimes translators may not be comfortable on that topic. So make sure that you have that conversation before booking them, that these are the things that you're going to be talking about, and making sure they're going to be okay discussing that topic with that person. So financial exploitation, we see an increase, especially with our independent living population and our older populations. There may be payments from foster care services, EBT, applying for loans, applying for credit cards, electricity, cable bills, financial power of attorney, pension, Social Security, other benefits. There's all an attempt to make connections with the disabled adult, make it easily and not only be exploited by others using their finances and their benefits.
If you are older and have a disability, you may receive money or a check each month to help pay for your care or expenses. Sometimes you will hear people call this Social Security or disability benefits. This money is yours and should never be taken from you for someone else to use. As people get older, involving the help of others in money matters is common. Many seniors may ask their children, grandchildren, caregivers, or others for assistance with handling their money. But family members, caregivers, neighbors, and even professionals can cross the line into financial abuse, which means they will use your money for themselves. If you are a child, teen, or older adult with an intellectual disability, you are at risk to have your money taken from you by a bad person. When this happens, it can often be a relative, caregiver, or another person you are familiar with. These bad people may trick you, threaten you, or try to control you to take your disability money for their own benefit. It can happen at home, in a group home, or at a nursing home. While some instances occur as deception or false pretenses, it isn't uncommon for abuse to include threats and harassment. You may rely on the abuser or bad person for daily care and basic needs, and
So due to time, I'm going to cut that video short. I want to let you know that we will submit all of this to the STAC site, so you will have the capability of viewing the PowerPoint as well as the videos. So what should you do? How do you see it, suspect it, report it? You have the National Human Trafficking Hotline for resources, and that's for minor and vulnerable adults at 1-888-373-7888. As well as the DCF hotline. So if there's a minor or a vulnerable adult that you have concern that is involved in human trafficking, you're going to contact the hotline if you're in Florida. If you're not in Florida and you don't know exactly who to call for that local state, you can contact that National Human Trafficking Hotline, and they will connect you with your local authorities. The Florida Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-855-FLA-SAFE or see something, say something at state.fl.us will allow you to report to law enforcement. And again, even if you don't know the jurisdiction, you can use that. And that's run by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and they can connect you to your local authority. For the senior protection team, also to attempt to identify emerging scams, spot trends, and stay ahead of changes in technology used to prey on seniors. And that's ran by the Florida Attorney General's office. Other references. So as far as the images, there's a service for One Step that can help remove online nude or partially nude or sexually explicit pictures and videos, and that's at Take It Down. That is new legislation that was passed, and that's run by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or at NCMEC.org. So if a picture has been posted of either yourself or a child that is not appropriate, they can contact them and they can tag that photo and see if it's been downloaded, because unfortunately a lot of times if it's on one site, it might be on multiple because it's shared and downloaded many times over, but they will be able to identify that image and take it down. We also have some online toolkits. STAC also has a toolkit as well. The Florida DCF Online Safety Toolkit for Parents was released this past January. We also, the Florida Attorney General's Office has an online safety toolkit as well. And again, that senior protection team run by the Attorney General's Office. So you can also make a cyber tip report if you run across an image that you don't think it is appropriate, if it's a minor on different stages of dress, or feel like that minor might be being sexually exploited, but maybe you don't have a lot of information, like you don't know who that child is or how to make a report maybe to the Florida Abuse Hotline. You can make a cyber tip report on that image, and we can do, NCMEC can do more investigation to try to identify that young person. Again, that Take It Down, again, is your explicit content out there. Also run through missingkids.org through NCMEC. They have analysts. They can report directly to companies. They can monitor the images for takedown, and they continue to send additional notices about the images on your behalf. So these are some great resources that has came about on the last couple of years on assisting us with sexual exploitation. So I am going to open it up for questions at this point. I think we have some questions in chat that I would like to answer. We do many trainings. This is just one of many that we do on many different platforms. We attend conferences. We can come out and train your agencies if you are wanting additional training. Email is the best way to reach me at marina.anderson@myflfamilies.com. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Marina. Wow, that was such a lot of great information. I think people learned a lot. I know I did for sure. And why don't we get to some questions right away? So the first question is about, and this is a really insightful question, about the victim is normally scared of victim shaming. How do you encourage them to share, to come forward, really? I think in a way that is not re-victimizing and really helpful, right?
Absolutely. Just having that open end communication is very important. You need to, it's just really sit down and have a candid conversation on how important it is to, even if maybe you have shared images before, that it's not going to go away, that they're master manipulators. They're oftentimes maybe doing this to multiple people, that they're not the only one. And that's what we hear so much. Oh, well, they think that this has only happened to them. That's never happened to anybody else before. I'm having a really hard time getting out of my PowerPoint to stop share. So I don't.
Wow. Okay. Well, we can hear you and see you. So instead of worrying about it, let us guide you.
That's fine. Just saying I can't see you, but as long as you can see me, we're good.
Okay. We can see you, and we see your email is still up there so people can take it down, and that's fine. Like so many people are saying, thank you so much. Great information. Another question has come in. Does senior protection team handle people with a caregiver for SSI, even if they're not considered a senior? I'm not sure what that means. Do you know what they're mentioning here?
I think they're saying that you don't have to be a senior, that you could, that they'll actually handle it if it's a vulnerable adult. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a senior or elderly person.
Yes. Right. Okay, great. Also, someone noted that, Shahid, thank you, that cybercrimes are often transporter transnational. I think you made that point, Marina. That was something that was a takeaway on your last presentation, how a victim may never even encounter a trafficker. Like on the one hand, we have familial trafficking where the family structure is so intense and there's lots of that. But then we have traffickers that victims are never even in the presence of the trafficker, right?
That's exactly
That
right.
it makes it more complicated legally, right, jurisdictionally, but there you go. Somebody is noting too, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? I've shared a few times the page for the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center.org. If you go on that page, you'll be able to get a copy of or watch this video, share the link. We will at STAC give you a certificate for attending. It's not like you have to only, attend when it's live. This one, as well as past webinars, are going to be posted there, and I'll go ahead and post that link again. We're going to have both the webinar and the PowerPoint up then. Okay. All right.
And
I
Marina,
think we
Jenna
got that.
and Miss Robin, I think Jenna put in the chat, she was wondering if there was a sheet to have all the apps on rather than having to have the PowerPoint. Like, is there a toolkit where she can just have something with all the apps? I do know we have one of those. Marina, I don't know if you have it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be a great thing to have. We don't have that, but do you all have that, Marina?
We do, and also on the AG's office page on their online safety toolkit, it has that information on there as well.
Hey, and thanks to Jim Jolly, he had 3 takeaways. Attendees to visit our website. Yes, please do. And that's part of my small commercial to say, next month, we're going to talk about trafficking in gangs. Last month, we talked about forced criminality as a form of labor trafficking. This is all linked, y'all. It's just all overlapping. So please pay attention to that. Attendees from Northwest Florida to participate in the Up Summit. There you go. It's right there. So we have talked about gangs, Marina, in the past, and the speakers on this one are the head of the essentially the Georgia Criminal Justice Trafficking Council, and our own Victor Williams. I say our own because he's in Miami, he's in Florida. They'll be here next month. So we'll be talking about that. Go on the STAC's website, sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss anything. Go to the events page. You can see all of the Third Friday topics through the end of the year now. Not all the registration info is in there, but topics are up there too. Okay. All right. So, somebody also mentioned you got to pay attention to money laundering, right? I mean, when you talk about this, it's not just, it's not just that one side. Traffickers are moving they have to move their money through the financial sector, right?
Yep, absolutely. The financial sector, and especially in the cryptocurrency world.
Great, great, great. There was a lot of conversation about the highly addictive K2 weed, as I mentioned. People didn't know about that. Certainly one of my takeaways is the danger of weed that's getting laced with meth, you said, and other things that are really, really harmful to kids overall, and adults, just knowing that. And the fact that there's lots legally that's happening, that people can buy this stuff in the stores and the dispensaries is also very frightening.
I can see him now. Thank you for taking that down. It was stuck. It was my screen was frozen, so I wasn't able to. But now I can see everyone. So, and I can see your chat. So great.
Okay, great. Yeah, tons of thank yous to you. So yes, Jenna is saying the registrations aren't up yet, but know that that's happening soon. So you're going to have to circle back to our website to sign up for next month's illegal gangs and human trafficking presentations. Note too, on the topic of money laundering, we're about to drop a podcast where I've interviewed a survivor who was forced to commit crimes around money laundering in that situation. And she herself is an expert on money laundering and trafficking. So that'll be the topic in September. Any other questions of anyone? Do you see anything else there, Victoria? I know you've been diligently watching the chat and the Q&A as well.
I think you've answered most of them.
Okay, great. And I've just, by the way, y'all, just again, I want to share with you that any support, I put our donation link in there, any support you can provide helps us keep these programs going. I feel a little bit like I'm on PBS, but we really do need our viewer support. So, so know that if you've benefited by this and you are so moved, we would appreciate your support.